Welcome to tabs. Just what is a tab? On your keyboard, left-hand side next to the Q is a key with an arrow. Sometimes it will actually say tab on that arrow. And what this achieves in Word, if you place your cursor, for example, here at the beginning of databases, is it moves the content to the next tab stop. So if I press tab now, I get moved across to the next tab stop. And if I press tab again, I move to the next tab stop. And by default, the tab stops in Word are set at 1/2 inch. So each tab press will take me forwards 1/2 inch. Now to go backwards a tab stop, I use the backspace delete key, and that brings me back a tab stop at a time. Now tabs are extremely useful for aligning content from one line to the next, so that you know that they are lined up correctly, other than counting spaces, which doesn't always work. So if I had a series of text, so let's remove these tab stops, and come down to the end of the document, Control End, we know that already, and I wanted to align some items slightly in from the text, I would press tab once to bring things in, and say this is an item, return to start a new line, and then a single tab stop in again, this is item 2. I can see that the items are lined up perfectly, even if I can't spell this. Now that's much more difficult to do with spaces, but the tabs make it controllable. Now you don't have to live with Word's default tab stops. We can add our own. So if we're not happy with 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch, we can add our own tab stops. Now all tab stops can be added manually using the ruler across here. And every time I click in the ruler, whatever paragraph I am in or have highlighted, a new tab stop will be added. So if I were to go up here around the 2-inch mark and click once, you'll see that I get a little L mark, and in the paragraph that I was in, the text jumps to that point because I've inserted a new left tab stop. If I were to then go to the 4 and click one there, you see I get another L. Now this time the text doesn't jump to it because it sits at this tab stop, but if I come back to the beginning of this as an item and tab, it then jumps to my new tab stop. It completely ignores the default 1/2 inch ones. So once you start adding your own tab stops, the default Word 1/2 inch ones are then ignored and you can tab to your own places. Now these 2 tab stops are actually only in this paragraph. If I click in this paragraph here, you'll see that they don't exist. So I would need to add them in again. Alternatively, from this paragraph here, if I press return to start a new paragraph, the tab stops come with it, so they are repeated. So I can tab to the first point, the 2-inch, and tab to the 4-inch. This is item 2. And I know that they are perfectly aligned because I'm using the tab stops to line them up. Now there aren't just left tab stops. These are the defaults and these are the ones you can add yourself, but you can add other tab stops. If I click into this line here where there are none, and go right over to the left here at the top of the vertical ruler, you can see there is the little left tab symbol, the L. If I click that, it changes to a center tab. And if I hover, it tells me that. If I click it again, it changes to a right tab. And if I hover, it tells me that too. And if I click it again, it changes to a decimal tab. And you can see that if I hover, it tells me that as well. And if I click it again, it comes to a bar tab. And if I click it again, it comes back to an indent symbol, and again, a hanging indent, and again, back to a left tab. So these stops here, each time I click, it changes to a different tab or a different indent type. So let's click back around and change this so that I'm looking back at a center tab. I then come across to my ruler, and somewhere about the middle, click, I get a center tab. Now a center tab causes the text not to be left aligned to the tab, but to be centered around the tab stop. So if I delete, this is item 2, you can see that the cursor is right on the tab, but as I start to type, it goes out of both sides because it's center aligning around that tab stop. Let's come down to another line. Now when you press return, it copies the tabs down, but I can remove a tab by simply going up to it in the ruler and dragging it out of the ruler and let go, and that deletes the tab and puts back the Word default 1/2 inch ones. Let's change this now around to a right tab and come and click in at about 4 inches. I'm still flashing at the beginning of the line, but if I press tab, it jumps me to the next tab stop, which happens to be my right aligned tab stop. And when I start typing, I find that the text is right aligned to that tab stop. So using the ruler, the horizontal ruler, I can actually add and take away my own customized tab stops. And they can be left, so the text is left aligned to it. They can be right, so the text is right aligned to it. And they can be center, so the text is center aligned. So we have one paragraph here with a right aligned tab, one here with a center aligned tab, one here with two left tabs. Now these tabs can be moved, and you'll see that the text moves with it. So if I click into these two paragraphs here that have the same tab stops, I can actually grab that left tab stop and move it slightly to here, and any text aligned to that tab stop will move with it. So I've affected two paragraphs there by highlighting the two paragraphs. This one here has a center aligned one. I can move that across, and you see the text is moving with it to stay center aligned. And the right one, I can grab the tab and perhaps move it across, but the text will stay right aligned to that tab stop. So the tab stops are there by default every ½ inch. We can add our own into the ruler at the top to help align text on our document.